Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner via Zoom, Dan Youngblood, who's fully decked out in his Baylor garb, as you can see. And anyway, Dan, we've got Ryan Lewis, the head baseball coach at Jim Ned, joining us for today's show, and you can wipe that silly little smile right off your face.
No, I can't. That's staying there for a long time. I told you before we got on that I never
national
envisioned
champs, man, in basketball. How did that happen?
No, it's crazy. My first year at Baylor, my freshman year was Scott Drew's first year there. And to say that program was in the toilet is an understatement. I mean,
he's been there since 1981. He's been there that long.
03. But no, it's a remarkable achievement. There was a ton of fun to watch this year. But I'll stop there before I start gushing too much. Let's talk about Coach Lewis, who's doing a great job at Jim Ned with their baseball program. Last year, they had a really good young team that showed a lot of promise, had a few close losses to really good teams that kind of showed how close they were to reaching that kind of elite level in this region. This year, they've kind of taken that next step. They're off to a phenomenal start. So it's going to be fun talking to Coach Lewis about that. He's a guy that I got to work with when he was at Abilene High. He was their head baseball coach there before taking the Jim Ned job. So I worked with him directly there, and it's been fun watching him have the success he has at Jim Ned, which is – Let's face it, they're on a roll program wide. That this athletic program is having quite a run, and
yes.
They're continuing with the baseball season. So it's going to be fun to follow the rest this way. But I'm excited to talk to Coach Lewis and just to kind of get his take on what they're doing right now and kind of how far he thinks they can take this.
Jim Ned is good at everything they do. I mean, they're good at everything that they do now. So they've reached that point. Before we jump into this week's show, we need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. All right, and with that, before we bring on Coach Lewis, we want to talk a little bit about baseball. The Major League Baseball season's underway. I know you're excited about that because you vanish. As soon as the baseball season starts, I see a lot less of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get excited about the Rangers right now, but I just love baseball, period. So anytime we're talking about baseball, it's a good day for me. All
right. Now, one thing that we're going to bring up, and I don't know, I'm a guy that, I respect sports officials, and I think that we should respect sports officials. But there's one thing that I cannot abide by. It just drives me bananas every time I see it, especially in games that get out of control, baseball or softball. As a home plate umpire, that, in my view, gives the 50-50 balls, the 50-50 pitches that could go kind of either way, consistently to the hitters, especially in games that are already out of control. That drives me nuts. Umpires that squeeze pitchers, I don't know. That's one thing that I guess we could just call it a pet peeve. It drives me bananas.
Yeah, but I think in a close game, as long as your zone's consistent, I'm okay. But if it does get lopsided or it gets one of these games that's already going 2.5, 3 hours, and you're calling and you're making pitchers be that fine. Look, the pitcher spent 2.5 hours proving he can't throw strikes into your shoebox zone. Start giving him a little bit off the edge, but
move the game along.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, that's one of those things and one of the things I'm excited we're going to try to ask Coach about as well. And that's something we've talked to coaches about for a while now in different interviews we've done is about the DH, where I'm sure you and I have fairly fervent disagreements.
We haven't had one guy yet. We've not had one coach come out and say, yeah, make the pitchers bat. It's the way the game was originally. Every one of them so far has been pro DH.
Yeah, and for good reason. Nobody wants to watch a pitcher bat, especially when they come up in a big situation. But and I'll go back to I've had this argument. I remember writing a point counterpoint column with a buddy of mine in college about this. So I've been talking about this for decades now. But my thing is, in high school it's different because in high school you have kids who are pitchers who actually put in work to become good hitters. But really, with specialization, what it is, college on, these guys don't even care about hitting. They don't even try to become decent hitters. So it's an automatic out.
The quality of pitching the quality of pitching is up at those levels too, though.
True.
That's one reason why high school pitchers can hit is they're not facing major league pitching.
But it's also a priority of theirs to be reasonably good hitters. Whereas when you get to college and you get to these guys, particularly watch NL baseball, you're talking about guys hitting 170. The good hitting pitchers are hitting 185. It's not. Come on, I don't want that guy coming up in a 2-out situation with runners. And frankly, also I don't want a manager to be forced to pull a guy who's throwing a gem because he doesn't want his 185 hitting pitcher to come up in their best scoring opportunity of the game in the 6th inning. Like I'd rather see that guy go 7 or 8 innings too. So
how often do we see that in today's game? 7 or 8 innings. Don't see that very often anymore. But
it depends on the starter. We certainly don't see it.
That's another issue I've got right there. But
you're just an old man screaming at clouds. You don't.
I hate to disagree. I hate to agree with Pete Rose on anything, but I agree with what he said about National League baseball. You have to own a glove to play in the National League. You have to own a glove to play in the National League. Real baseball.
Half these pitchers don't need to own a bat. They're not going to go and swing it anyway. They could be holding their shoe and it would be the same outcome. But the other thing, and I'm interested in talking to some of these coaches about, and I'm sure we might disagree here too, is I get the Ted Williams shift. It's starting to drive me crazy. Here's why. I'll explain my case before you make your counterpoint.
Before I go on my rant.
Before you make your counterpoint, is it's one thing when it's like an occasional deal to attack a particular hitter, whatever. But what bothers me is that now that it's done with the frequency it disproportionately impacts one type of hitter, and that is the Ted Williams left-handed pull hitter. You can be just as undisciplined in terms of using the whole field as a right-hander and not have to deal with it at all because you can't shift a right-hander the same way. You have to cover first base.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is so basically you're taking 35, 40 points off of one type of hitter's batting average, and no one else has to worry about that. It's lame. And frankly, I want to watch Joey Gallo go up there and hit the ball hard. I want to watch, if I were alive then, I'd want to watch Ted Williams go up there and hit the ball hard. I don't want to watch him lay down a bunt. I don't want to watch him become a softball slap hitter. I want to watch him do what he does well.
Be careful now.
I have no problem with softball slap hitters, but I don't want to watch the greatest hitter of all time become one.
And you and I have had this conversation before. What bothers me is that any rule change that we see in Major League Baseball, any rule change that we make always benefits the hitters. Always. When's the last rule change that benefited the pitchers? Ever. Now a relief pitcher has to stay in. You can't have specialized relief pitching.
Here's
anymore.
The problem, though, and that's true. But here's the problem. It's the same thing with the shift. It's that with the analytics, you're abusing things. Like managers are abusing. Like I have no problem with the 1-out lefty back when you had one 1-out lefty in your bullpen. Like that was good. But now when you've got 4 1-out relievers in your bullpen and you're throwing 7 guys in a game, the game lasts 4 hours. Nobody wants to watch a 4-hour game. It's hurting your game. It's the same thing with these shifts. It's the same thing with
runs. It's fewer runs.
When you're shifting every batter, it's the same thing. I think you're abusing.
You want to speed the game up? Yeah, you're talking to the right guy. I can speed the game up for you. Let me be king for a day. We'll have the mound back up to the 1968 level. Then you'll see some quicker games. Trust me.
But there's a balance to be struck. I understand where you're coming from, and I do agree that basically every rule change that we've seen has been to promote more scoring.
Yes,
so it has hurt the pitchers, but my thing is, and I'm all for analytics. I think that they have their place. I'm not an old school, anti Moneyball necessarily, but I do think at some point they can be abused. And a perfect example, I don't know, I remember last year in the World Series is a perfect example when you had Tampa Bay pulling starters who were throwing absolute gems in the 6th inning to throw to throw in some reliever that the numbers said was going to be better. I was glad they lost for that. When you have an ace on the mound throwing well, let the guy throw. But that's just me on a soapbox. I'll be interested to see what Coach Lewis has to say about some of this, because we're going to ask him some of these things. I know he's a big baseball fan too.
Well, before we bring him on, we need to thank our sponsors. Again, first and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts free of charge throughout the school year. Also, for the love of the game broadcasting, on our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, 97.7 KATX FM out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breckenridge, and 98.5 KWBY FM out of Ranger. That is for the love of the game broadcasting. Also, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give him a shout at 325-669-5153 or visit his website at philhillproperties.com. And finally, Jack's Road Boring out of Snyder, dirt sales and services with experience and service that you can count on. Larry Green is the man to call out there. Give him a shout at 325-575-8004. That is Jack's Road Boring in Snyder. And with that, before I listen to any more of your millennial baseball nonsense, it's just about time to bring Coach Lewis on. Unfortunately, I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to be pro DH like the rest of them, but I'm holding my ground. It's the way the game was invented. It's the way it was meant to be played. I want fewer runs up on the board. I would much rather see 2-1 in 10 innings than 14-12 in 6 innings.
I'll just say this: basketball was invented without a 3-point line, without a number of things that have been since added that have helped the game. I think you got to evolve and grow. But that up there, we've got to talk Jim Ned baseball, and one
thing I don't understand about you before I bring Coach on, I as a former pitcher, I suffered out there. I bled out there, and so did you. And yet you are pro hitter. I don't get it. You are a pitcher and you are pro hitter. I do not get that.
That's because I batted too.
So did I. I didn't bat well. Yeah. So did I. I didn't hit well. Not my league, but still, it doesn't matter. I cannot believe you're a pro hitter.
I want what's best for the game. I want the game to be one that and I think there is a balance to be struck. I don't want to go too far in one direction. I think in the 90s in particular, Major League Baseball with particularly with steroids and a lot of other things and in a extremely live baseball went the opposite direction, and it became a spot where pitchers weren't at all in a position to succeed. I think you've seen that pendulum swing back, and we're actually in a pretty good place right now where good pitchers are rewarded for making good pitches now. So as long as that's the case, I'm fine with it.
All right, and with that, it is time to bring on Coach Lewis. So we'll let him clarify a few of these things for us.
For sure. Let's get him on.
And joining us now via Zoom, Jim Ned head baseball coach Ryan Lewis. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Coach, tell us about your arrival at Jim Ned when you first took over the job, because it was successful for a number of years. Did you feel pressure taking that gig?
Oh yeah, I was really excited to be able to take that. It was a great situation to be able to step into it. Obviously Vince LaValle had done a great job here and has a lot of wins here with this program. So I knew it was in good hands when I got here. So it was an easy decision for me to make.
Coach, we had talked about this last year after the COVID shutdown when we were doing our feature series on what might have been, and y'all had gotten off to a really good start. So I know that y'all had a lot of talent and a lot of young kids who are going to be back. I guess just how much did that kind of impact coming into this season, maybe some of the expectations and momentum and those sorts of things?
Well, first of all, I saw those Baylor mugs back there in the back. You didn't just set those up there okay, I'm just making sure that wasn't just a bandwagon deal. But
no, they're here every week.
Last year was such a bad deal for a lot of people, and I really feel bad for the Breckenridges of the world. That Breckenridge was really, really talented last year. But I felt we were good. We lost to them, I think 4-3 maybe at our place. It was a really good ball game, and I knew we had a good squad. I knew we had a good team. The thing that hurt was the experience, not getting to get some playoff experience with a young team. I mean, they're all back, so, hopefully going into the playoffs this year, if we're fortunate enough to get there, you don't want to nix anything right now, but I mean, playoff experience is so valuable. And that's the only thing that I hate about last year is the fact that we're not getting that playoff experience with a young group of guys. We're majority juniors and sophomores, with a couple seniors, sprinkled in there. So it's just the experience was good because we knew what we had. We got to see in a very short amount of time what we had available coming into this year. However, you get a whole lot of experience. So a lot of guys lost that. Now our guys, the one thing that didn't shut down last year was travel ball. I mean, it just did not. So all of our guys played all summer and continue to play, which is a good thing. But as far as being together as a team, that kind of hurt us. But at least we knew where we were at and what we were bringing to the table. And so went into this year very excited.
Coach, you're ranked among the best teams in the state in Class 3A. A lot of people are speculating that this is a ball club that could get to Round Rock. Looking ahead, if you were to get that far, if you're going to get to Round Rock, what in your estimation is going to get you there? What are the keys?
Pitching and defense. I mean, it doesn't matter if we're talking about Little League, high school, pro, college, whatever. It all starts with the guy on the bump. And if you've got guys that can keep you within reach, I mean, you don't ever put up big against you, crooked numbers against you. You've got a chance in every ball game. So I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm playing some little podunk school that has no talent, but they got a guy on the mound that throws 90. Well, we're not going to score a bunch of runs probably. So they're in a game. So pitching is definitely where it starts. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a couple of state championships of football, one at Abilene High and one now here. And I do realize in order to get there, you got to get some bounces. You got to get some things got to go your way. So, hopefully you play the game the right way. You don't disgrace the game, and hopefully, the baseball gods are in your favor and things work out for you and you get there. That we talk about it. We talk about it every day. That's where we want to be. I don't think you can achieve goals if you don't talk about them. We're not afraid to fail, and that's our goal. We got 2 posters in our dugout that says how many miles is it to Round Rock, and it's got a map and it's got the little deal. I mean, we're going to talk about it. We're not going to shy away from it. Are we going to get there? I don't know, but that's definitely a goal of ours. But obviously, goal 1 is to get in the playoffs, and then see what happens from that point.
And Coach, you mentioned pitching, and that's obviously been a big strength of y'all. Y'all are blessed with a whole lot of pitching depth. I know Tate's a guy that he's been doing it for a while since his freshman year, but y'all have got a lot of pitching behind him, really good pitching. Just how did you kind of build that kind of staff and kind of cultivate some of that depth?
I didn't build it. They showed up at school, and God bless some of these guys with lightning bolts on their arm, and they can throw the baseball, and they can throw it for strikes, and they can throw off speed. And so it's been a really good, I mean, we try to fine tune it, but my whole goal as a pitcher is as a coach is sometimes just stay out of their way, keep them doing what they're doing. Don't try to complicate. If it's working, then why would you go in there and try to change stuff? So, I mean, we just make sure their arms in shape, we make sure we take care of their arms, and then we try to manage the staff as much as we can, trying to find a way to get as many innings as we can with those guys. And during district play, it gets hard, so tournament season was good because we get to get a bunch of people, get a bunch of arms. But when you get down to 2 games a week, that changes in a hurry.
I'm going to throw an extra question in because of what you just said. It makes me wonder, Coach. You give your guys on the bump the final veto before they throw that pitch, or do you have that final veto?
My son's the catcher, and this is the first year of me being a head coach that I've allowed the catcher to call the pitches. When we go in between each inning, I started off calling pitches this year, and then I started kind of giving the reins over to him, and then finally he was doing a good job. but I can also go to him and I can say, hey, why did you call that pitch? And then he better have a good answer, why he did, whether it worked or not. I want him to be thinking, hey, this is why I called that. This is why it didn't work out. We made a bad pitch, but I can say, okay, I understand that. Or, hey, that's not a good situation. We just threw two fastballs by this guy. Why would you speed up his bat by throwing a curveball? Now he's got that obviously figured out, but it's just little. That was just an example. So little things. Now I still do have a wristband that I can look at him and say, hey, here's what I want. But I haven't done that in a few games, so it's good. I mean, if the catcher can call it, it's better. It speeds up the pace of the game. He's right there in the box with the guy. He sees where the guy's standing. He sees where a pitch missed. When I'm over in the dugout. So it's, if your catcher can call it, it's definitely better. But ultimately, I could veto everything to answer your question, but I'm trying to stay out of that and let them think on their own. And the pitcher can also he's got the deals like, I'm not real good about that pitch. I want the pitcher to be 100% committed to it too. So, but there hadn't been many shakeoffs.
Okay. One question I would have for you these days, it's especially at the smaller school level, it's more and more common to see teams that have multiple options of guys that can throw strikes. When maybe 25, 30 years ago, that really wasn't the case. Once you got to guy number 3 or number 4, a lot of teams were in serious trouble. But how much of this is because of the evolution of pitching coaches and the quality that we're seeing?
Well, honestly, I think it's increased just because of how much more kids are playing these days. That you go to these tournaments and you've got to have a bunch of arms. So kids figure out, hey, if I want to go play, if I can pitch, I'm going to get on a field at some point in these tournaments and play. So I think a lot of that is just the kids are playing more baseball these days, which is good and bad. But I think kids are figuring out, hey, my worth is pretty good if I can pitch, and the amount of, innings that I can help a team win, whether, if I can get on there, because it doesn't matter if you throw hard. Let's be honest. 70% of the time you hit the ball, you're going to get out. So if you can throw it over the plate with any velocity or anything at all, chances are you're going to get somebody out. So I think as a coach, you teach a kid basic mechanics. And there's some kids that can stand on one leg, hop around and bark like a dog and still throw strikes. And then there's some dudes that can do everything mechanically right and still not throw strikes. So it's a lot of God-given ability. Let's not get that mistaken. But I just fine tune them, try to make sure they're all in line, mechanics are working, not putting their arm in a bad spot, and let them go out and do what they do.
And Coach, we've seen this at GymNet with the basketball programs for years. We saw it with the football program this past season. We see it with your baseball program. That's a community that really supports its kids and really supports its programs. Just how blessed are you to have the support you have, and just kind of talk a little bit about what you've seen from that this year with the run y'all are on?
Man, it's really a special place out here. The fans travel for all sports. The support, from getting outfield signs to help your program, I mean, it's phenomenal. Our kids, and we've got to have that support because we don't have a big tax base out here. I mean, there's not a bunch of businesses and stuff like that, and so it's a lot of that support has got to come from community. And man, I tell you what, it is crazy the amount of support that we get from people out here. That whether they own businesses in Abilene, but they live here, it's just, it's really a special place. And that's why I wanted to get out here. I had a really good thing at Abilene High and really enjoyed my time there, but I wanted to go smaller. And this was the place I wanted to be. And it didn't let me down. I can tell you that much.
And just kind of piggybacking off that, you're there right now in a time of great success program wide across all of your athletic programs. And I hear coaches talk a lot about how kind of success breeds success, and there is some of that momentum building between seasons. How much have you seen that from football to basketball to baseball, where these kids are just winning at every sport and it just kind of carries over?
Yeah, it's just the confidence factor. It's you win at football, and it's school wide. Don't give me winning changes the whole culture of the school. Just like the educational day, when you're winning in all sports, it changes the whole school environment. I don't know how to explain that other than it's just different when you're winning. We've done that in football, and then obviously now it went over into basketball, and then it went over. We just won a district championship in track. Now, obviously, we're having a good baseball season, but and these are all the same kids. These are all the same kids that are just going from one sport to the next sport to the next sport, and when you expect to winning when that is the expectation is to win. I think kids play different when they know and they're confident. They know they can win, and I think that's a big deal. There's a big difference in confidence and arrogance. And I think our kids are extremely confident right now in what they're doing. You can always get knocked down a rung on the ladder, um, but at the same time, I think our kids are confident in what they want to achieve, and they've been doing a good job of it this year and in the last 3 years, as a matter of fact.
All right, Coach, talk about the region that you are in, and I mean, it's basically a minefield. It is every year. Can you talk about some of the top threats and how difficult this region really is going through?
Well, obviously, Shallow Water is going to be a really, really talented team. Um, I've just kind of started to because I'm gonna have to start getting into the scouting deal here this last little stretch run the district playoffs. I got to start going to scout some teams, and obviously Shallow Water's having a great team. Brock's having a great year. I'll tell you who's a dark horse that's going to surprise people is Early. Early's got a really talented little team, and they're young. They're like us, but they are really. We played them and beat them, but I was really really impressed at uh, what Coach Hatton has done over there with them and the talent that they've got with a young crew. So they're going to be a team to watch to knock some people down through the playoffs as well. There's just Holiday. I mean, they're just always so good. Coach uh, last game there, and it's just I don't know. There's some really talented. Getting out of this region is going to be difficult, but we're up for the challenge. I'm ready. If you told me I get to go play for a regional championship, at the start of the season, I'd say let's go. So um, there's just there's a lot of tough teams out there in 3A ball. People don't realize it, but you just got to have nine. You got nine good ball players, a couple of good arms, man. You can have a pretty good squad. So um, I'm looking forward to the challenge, obviously.
And Coach, I'm a big baseball fan just in general. I watch a whole lot of baseball, and at the major league level, obviously you've seen kind of the analytics and the sabermetric stuff kind of change the way the game's played. With there's a lot more three true outcome stuff, strikeouts, walks, home runs. I know it's a little different at high school, obviously, where you can't go and trade for or sign a middle of the order bat that's going to hit you, 15 bombs. But how much of that have you seen kind of trickle down to the high school game in terms of analytics? Have you seen maybe some of that stuff change some of the way the game's played, or is it still generally speaking small ball, move the runner over, score him?
Man, it doesn't change the way I've done anything because I just coach a certain way. People are like, "What's your baseball philosophy?" And I was like, "I don't have one. It changes from inning to pitch to from score." Obviously, if I'm up 5 in the seventh and a runner on second, I'm not going to bunt the guy over. We're going to swing it.
Mm-hmm.
We get down. We're tie ball game in the seventh, runner on second, nobody out. Obviously, I'm going to move him over. So I don't know that I will play for the big inning. I will play for small ball. I love trying to score first. Just get that first run on the board, however you can. Sometimes you roll the dice, it works out. Sometimes it's just And if your kids aren't hitting, there's no analytics in it. You're just sitting over in the third base coaching box twiddling your thumbs because there's nothing to do. So a lot of it's on the kids as to what you do, and you just kind of me personally, I feel a game out, and I kind of get a feeling, and then sometimes the feeling works out, sometimes it doesn't. Um, I just we can't do analytics because there's not a big enough anything to draw from. We can't get enough stats to do that. Um, maybe if you had a district opponent that you're really really familiar with and their kids, obviously you could do some things, but no more than we get to see each other play because we're all at different tournaments and playing on the same days. We just can't do that. You just got to, maybe the second time around you kind of, this guy's a straight pull hitter, or this guy's this, or you can do a little bit, but other than that, there's a lot of play straight up. Hopefully your dude's better than their dude.
Coach, I'm going to throw one of my pet peeves at you and see what you think. And maybe you're on the same wavelength as I am. Maybe you're not. I'm a guy that I'm really big on respecting sports officials, football, basketball, baseball, all of it. But there's one particular type of official, and I can't stop beating this drum. I cannot stop. It's one of the things that just gets on my nerves. If there's an official that will get on my nerves quicker than anything, it's a baseball or softball umpire that squeezes the strike zone and really, in my opinion, is hurting the pitching. I can watch a ball game. I'm not even emotionally involved in it, but if I've got an umpire back there doing that, it drives me nuts. I don't know. What do you? How do you handle this?
Well,
as an umpire, as a manager, I would think that, or a coach, it would just, I don't know, it would just drive me bananas.
Well, I can handle it as long as it's consistent. As long as both sides are being called the same way. Hey, I'm good. If he's going to squeeze us, hopefully he's squeezing them, and we got to live with it and just be better. I mean, we try not to make any excuses. Zero. Hey, be better. He's not calling it there. Well, you got to throw it somewhere else. I don't know what to tell you. Or the thing that gets me is kids are like, Coach, that wasn't a strike. That was outside. Caught me looking on strike 3. I said, well, you had 2 more before that. So don't blame it on the last one. You had 2 strikes before that, and you didn't take advantage of either one of those. So I can't help you. So as long as an official's consistent and he's staying, his zone is staying consistent, I don't want him to change throughout the game. I want him to stay where he started, finish in that spot. It doesn't bother me. We just got to live with it and play ball.
You're a better man than me, Coach. I'll tell you that.
Now, if I was pitching, if I'm pitching, maybe that's a different deal.
Right.
Yeah. Coach, we've had this discussion a lot with basketball coaches where working the officials kind of part of the game and those sorts of things. With baseball, obviously you can't argue balls and strikes and those sorts of things, but at the same time there is interaction there. If you disagree with things, you're going to let them know. I guess just what's kind of your philosophy? How do you deal with the umpires throughout the game and just kind of let them know where you're at?
Well, I think the best way, honestly, is to approach them like a man. I'll approach them like I would hope they would approach me. I try not to make a big scene. A lot of times I try to turn my back to the crowd so they can't hear what's going on. Try not to show up. You can say a lot of stuff to an official as long as you don't make a big scene out of it. Just, try to act civilized, tell them your opinion. Now, that's not to say that I haven't lost my cool and flown off the handle and made a fool of myself and my family and everybody involved, before. But, I try really hard to not do that. I think I've mellowed a lot as I've gotten a little bit older, figured out, hey, that's not getting me. You get more flies with honey, So I'm trying to work on that aspect a little bit. And, think, well, maybe if they like me, maybe they'll give me a call later, as opposed to, thinking of, you just blew that one, so I don't, and, there's things you can say to umpire. And a lot of times you'll be surprised how many times they'll look at you and say, hey, I missed that, and they'll own up to it. And you're like, okay, just don't miss the next one. and move on and go on about it. And then, take them a stick of chewing gum the next inning and, calm the waters and move on. So that's the way I try to handle it. It doesn't always work that way, but, that's what works for me. I've got some video of me not being so calm, cool, and collected.
Coach, we've been asking coaches. This will be our last question for the day, and we've been asking baseball coaches the same question for a long time. We'll put you in the commissioner's seat in Major League Baseball, and we'll let you be king for a day. Do you go with the DH in both leagues, or do you make pitchers bat in both leagues, and why?
I would go DH both leagues. I would go DH in both leagues, and there's two deals. I don't want one and the other. Now here's the other deal. I also would like both pitchers to bat. I'd not have a DH in both leagues because that would keep down on, if the pitcher doesn't ever have to bat, he has no fear of throwing inside and hitting somebody in the head. Mm-hmm. But now you say, okay, you want to drill their 4-hole hitter? Well, guess what? You're up next inning. So that cuts down on some of that stuff. If the pitcher knows he's going to have that eventually. So I would like to see I just hate watching a pitcher get in there in a major league game, and you can tell he's scared to death. He doesn't want to be there. He has zero desire to be in there. So I would rather see a guy in there that's ready to hit, as opposed to, well, now they got this guy. Now it changes when you got, what's the name, Osani or whatever, the pitcher, lefty for the Angels. That kind of got a unique situation. That's the first time they didn't use a DH in the American League in maybe ever. I don't know, because he just batted for himself. So I would like to see DH in both leagues and just end it and not have to watch awful at bats.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we will catch you on the road.
Thank you. Enjoyed being part of this. This was fun.
And that was Jim Ned head baseball coach Ryan Lewis. And I'll tell you what, Dan, Jim Ned, as long as they get the pitching and execute defensively, they have the look of a ball club. They can get to Dell Diamond.
Yeah, I agree. And so far, pitching's been a huge strength of that team. The pitching depth that they've shown early in this season, really impressive for a Class 3A program. And they've got that ace at the top in Tate Yardley that makes them, I think, a really dangerous team in the playoffs. So, I like this team a lot. Obviously, it's going to be tough to get through this region. You got a shallow water team that's very, very good this year. And then you've got programs at Brock and Wall that once they get to the playoffs, they're one of those that kind of always expect to win. They're probably not quite as strong as they've been in the past few years, but they're still very good. So this region is going to be a minefield, but I like the way this Jim Ned's team's playing. And they're coming off of just such a strong athletic year period that they're, when you win a state football championship, that gives you a little bit of confidence going into your next sports season, and this team's playing with a lot of confidence. So it's going to be fun to see what they do the rest of the way.
Yeah, well, and Coach mentioned, the youth of his ball club, the inexperience. He wishes he had gotten that postseason experience last year. But I'll tell you, you got a lot of guys on that baseball team that went all the way to Jerry World in football. And so, the poise is there. The poise is there. The experience may not be, but the poise is.
Yeah, that's the thing, too. You look at this, it is still a relatively young team. So, I know that they want to get it done this year, and I think they have a team and a window to do it. But this is a window that may last a couple of years. So, keep an eye on this Jim Ned program. It's really across all sports. This is a really good time to be a Jim Ned Indians fan.
All right, and with that, it's about time to close the books on the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we've got 3 separate subscription packages here at Big Country Preps. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual subscription, a 6-month subscription where you knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual, a 12-month subscription that we knock the price down to $3 a month. $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage. And it's important to keep in mind that we do not change our prices here. We don't do the carrot and the stick thing, dangle that in front of you and say, hey, for a nickel a month, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden jack the price up, ending up being very expensive. We don't do that. We don't play that game here. We stay at a low, reasonable price to begin with and to end with. It never changes.
And we'd also like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, it is available for just $7. You can click that small shopping cart icon to the bottom right, follow that prompt, and purchase as many of those as you would like. But if you scroll on the site, you'll see we take a whole lot of photos from these games we're at. It's something we enjoy doing, and it's something we're very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All big country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.